And hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode, If Not Now Wen. In today's show, I am really excited to welcome Andrea Nicholas to join with us today. Andrea is a seasoned corporate leader with over 25 years of experience. She's known for launching award-winning SaaS product and guiding Fortune 1000 companies' growth strategy. Her unique approach is coach-consultant, combining coaching plus consulting to help high achievers to think bigger and lead differently. And join us to welcome Andrea to the show. Well, thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us today. I am super honored to have you on the show with us.
My pleasure.
So tell us, how does all the magic begin for you, Andrea?
Well, I grew up in a Midwestern town of 200 people in a farming community. And everyone I knew, everyone I interacted with was either related to me or had been there their entire lives. And similar to your story, I didn't feel like that was a long-term fit for me. But it did form so much about who I am. And one experience in particular stays with me even to today. And that was my involvement in 4-H. And 4-H is a youth club for rural children to teach them life skills and confidence and expose them to greater opportunities that they would not ordinarily have exposure to.
So you teach them when you were young?
I was a member of that club, and I was fortunate to participate in that. You're eligible from the time you're 9 until you're 18.
Wow.
So I was fortunate to participate all those years and grow in that club into leadership roles and things like that. And there was a 4-H club parent and leader who especially impressed me. And I remember when I was about 14 years old, asking her, why do you do what you do? She was this farmer's wife, very plain spoken, very simple woman. And she was always birthing these new ideas and coming up with new ways to serve the community. That's what 4-H is really all about, is community service. And I asked her, what inspires you, in my 14-year-old language? And she said, well, I just see something that needs to be done. So I figure, well, may as well be me. And that notion of it may as well be me has been something that I've held on to all these years. And so when you see an opportunity, whether it's business or community or just a person, and you look around and you think, well, somebody needs to do something about that, that may as well be me, right?
That's such a beautiful notion. That's be the change we all want to see in the world.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So tell us what's next from there.
So I did leave the area and transferred to Texas when I was 20 years old, sight unseen. I had never been to Texas. I had never been to Houston. I was 20 years old, and I had grown up in a town of 200 people. So it was quite an experience to make that transition, and continued going to school and working, and eventually made my way up through corporate America and got into leadership roles and kept studying and, acquiring education, earned a bachelor's, then an MBA.
Where do you go for MBA, by the way?
Pardon?
Where do you go to for MBA?
For, University of Dallas.
Nice. I go to Duke.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And I was raised and still practice Catholicism, and so University of Dallas is a Catholic university, and that spoke to me. And along the way, met my husband. We will celebrate our 28th wedding anniversary this October, and have had a wonderful career trajectory, but I think even more important, a beautiful life experience.
How do you define beautiful, Andrea?
Being able to serve other people, and in my community, in my workplace, and in my private life, and enjoy the camaraderie of those around me, and get to do things that I enjoy, such as I'm a very active outdoors person, which is something that is lovely about living here in Austin. Is I get to kayak and hike and cycle. I'm a member of a ladies group. We call ourselves hikers. We hike, cycle, and kayak.
That's so cool.
And it's really nice to be able to enjoy that, again, as a community, but also to enjoy the great outdoors.
So tell us about the professional life, right? So how does that taking you as you climb out the ladder? What's next from there, Andrea?
So I was fortunate enough to be a part of the leadership team of a publicly traded organization pre-IPO, and that afforded me an opportunity to open a business. And I had always wanted to run a management consulting company. And in 2005, I felt that there were opportunities for improvement in the services. I had hired plenty of management consultants in my leadership role, and I noticed that there were gaps, and I felt that the market was ready for those gaps to be filled.
So you jumped ship from a fancy leadership position to opening a consulting business.
I did.
Was it terrifying, that moment?
It really wasn't. It's so funny. The big moments in my life, I've just looked at it and said, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I don't overanalyze it. I just do it. And people around me say it's, that I have this internal confidence. But to me, I figure, well, I'll figure it out.
That's amazing.
So in 2005, I opened that management consulting company.
And was it easy? Is it everything you anticipate, or?
It was, we were rocking along, doing just fine. We had a lot of really wonderful financial services clients. And then 2008 hit. And when you read about CEOs who feel that tremendous responsibility, I was one of those CEOs that was lying awake at night, worried that, to me, when you have a job or when you are an employer, you are impacting positively not just that employee, but all the people who depend on that employee. And I felt that intense responsibility to keep my employees working. And so many smaller consulting companies were shutting down. And I kept thinking there's a way through this, and it may as well be me. I kept coming back to that. It may as well be me.
That's amazing.
And realized, President Obama had been elected, and he had made a proclamation to invest in healthcare. And so I trained myself and others on my team in healthcare to make a transition. And we began courting healthcare companies. Our financial services clients were strapped. And so we transitioned.
So you pivot.
We did. Yeah. And by we all did it. It wasn't just me. But by 2010, we had the best year we'd had.
Wow.
So, even when things look really dark, I just encourage people. There's always a way.
Always a light.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened next?
So that continued to grow. Eventually, I was a services company for many, many years. And I was listening intently to my clients who were saying, I need a line of sight. It sounds somewhat dated now, but I need a line of sight that provides me metrics across the entire organization so I can see cause and effect interrelationships and customer journeys and things like that. And so I built a skunkworks team to investigate whether we could figure that out. And we determined that we didn't necessarily want to build something from scratch, but our clients, the SMB healthcare clients, were not able to afford something as expensive as, say, a Tableau product. So I partnered with a company called Sisense, which offered a more affordable solution, which I felt I could pass on to my clients. And, launched that product. Went through, typical go-to-market strategy angst
So now you become a product owner instead of
Product
service business.
We were still doing service
Mm.
and still doing, consulting engagements. This was a nice marriage. So there was always, because we were interacting with our clients' data, there was always a consulting engagement on the front end. So we still got to, pull from our deep consulting roots. But yeah, we became a product company, which was, new territory. And
what's something that surprised you in that transition?
I think the thing that surprised me the most about that was how different it was for my employees, because they were accustomed to being part of a service organization. So we all made that journey together.
What's the biggest difference?
The sales cycle's different. It's less, we were a boutique consulting company, so it was a lot about relationship building and really understanding our client and going above and beyond. And when you have a product, the product's doing a lot of that for you. It's less about the individual relationship and more about leaning on that product's quality to support that relationship. And so that was a little bit of a transition. We got recognized as a top IT solution for our segment, and that then brought in interest by people. So I made the decision to exit in 2018. And
congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And, I tried my hand at retirement and I flunked miserably.
Why?
I had too much gas in the tank left. And I remember sitting at a ladies' luncheon and the people were lovely. And I just kept thinking, I really want to get back into business. I just love business.
What do you love about it?
I love the energy of it. I love the change of it. I love bringing new ideas to the market. I always tell people, if you feel somehow questioning, what's going to happen in U.S. market, or will America persist, economically, all you have to do is go to an angel group and listen to half a dozen pitches, and you will be rejuvenated in your belief in the spirit of American industry and entrepreneurship will astound you.
That's incredible. So sounds like that moment of lunches, you realize, wow, that's amazing, but I got so much to give. What happened from there? Do you go back to your service company?
I did not. I went to work for a company, and it was the only segment that I could work in because of my non-compete. And I was in the C-suite, and I thoroughly enjoyed the work and my team, and felt, like it was a great opportunity. One of the things that I had been doing in the business that I ran was executive coaching. It was preparing these promising executives, junior executives, for their career transition. And I really enjoyed that. In fact, in the midst of all of the product and everything, I got certified in a coaching discipline because I felt like if I wanted to do that for my clients, I needed to level up and invest in my own education, acquire some new tools. And I discovered that I really missed that. I missed working in that capacity. And I felt just like every day, I just kept getting this little nudge internally that that's where I was supposed to be. And so I decided to leave that company and launch another enterprise, this time blending a little bit of that consulting background with traditional coaching. So it's a little bit different in that it's about delivery to the client's expectation. So we get very clear on their goals and priorities, and we build out executing plans. So traditional coaching is a little less active in that layer, and but I really enjoy this interpretation. And so I work now with executives who either want to expand their influence and impact inside their organizations, or maybe they're looking for external opportunities and preparing themselves to make that transition. Many of my executives are vying for compensated board positions with either public or privately held companies, and I help prepare them for that journey. And along the way, we work together on the variety of things that come up in just day-to-day leadership and being more intentional and effective as a leader. The foundation of my coach consulting practice is on values. And we get very clear on what their values are. And there's an exercise that we do at the very beginning. Every client, whether I have clients that are executives for Fortune 50 companies, and I have clients who are CEOs of startups and everybody in between, it doesn't matter. They all do the values exercise. It's for me to get to know them more in depth, but also for them to get a chance to do some self-reflection. As executives, we are so busy every day taking care of the business, the team, the board, the clients, so on, that we don't have a lot of time left for self-reflection. And some of the work that we do brings them back to who they are. Mm-hmm. And they, at first, many of them are somewhat uncomfortable with giving that much time to themselves because they've grown accustomed to not doing that. But over time, they begin to really value that as almost sacred time.
So Andrea, on that note, I'm curious, you speak about being effective leaders. What's your definition of being effective leaders?
Well, I think most effective leaders that I've worked with are people who can move an organization forward while keeping the business and the people intact.
I'm curious, do you miss a different part of a journey, as today you are almost as the coach consultant that's supporting those leaders, making those changes. But you were, years ago, you were at those seats driving forward, right? Do you miss a different part of your journey?
I think of myself as an investor today. And I'm an investor in community, in people, in my own business, and in other businesses. So to me, that's a value. And so I feel that I'm expressing my values in this chapter the way I want to.
Yeah. How do you define success?
I think for every person it's different.
For you?
For me, I think living my values of being committed to my community and to others, and being true to who I am.
Yeah, and I'm curious, as you are speaking, you were once a business owner and then a product owner, and now you are the coach consultant alongside with those leaders. I'm curious, is the value involved in a different stage of your personal career when it comes to live that success?
So I think one of the things I'm really committed to when it comes to values is we really don't morph that much in our values. I'm sure if I talked to you 10 years ago or 20 years from now and asked you to rattle off your top 10 values, they wouldn't change that much. But what happens at different chapters in our lives, those values will rise in importance. So naturally, a 25-year-old fresh out of college, building his or her career, single, family may be a value, but may not be in the top 3. That same person, when they're 40 and they have 3 kids in school, family may be in the top 3. So we assign priority of our values at different chapters of our lives. But the core values represent who we are as people.
What do you think, if I can say this, one single factor determines a leader's success or your success? because you have been meeting so many incredible men and women in different position, different level of impact in their organization. I'm curious, from a third party perspective, is there one characteristic you can say, wow, that is what made them?
I think there's a handful of them that routinely surface as characteristics of really effective leaders. And integrity is one, empathy is another, decisiveness. That my grandmother used to say to me, Andrea, you only have two choices. You either make the right decision or you make the decision right.
Wait, hold on. Made the right decision or made the decision right?
Yeah. It's powerful,
As a thinker.
It's powerful.
So it means you either make a right decision or you make a wrong decision, but you make it right afterwards.
There you go.
Okay.
And so we have to release our ego in order to do the second, right?
Yeah.
We have to say, well, I didn't quite get it right the first time. Or, which often happens, especially in the pace of business, things have changed. The circumstances under which I made those decisions no longer apply. I need to have the courage and the foresight to pivot, to make those changes and chart a new course.
Those are not easy.
Yeah.
Right. I imagine as you speak, you're supporting Fortune 1000 companies. That means they are a company on a big, scale as well as growing in smaller businesses. And I believe that pivot is a name of a game, especially when it comes to growing a very exciting and a huge potential, early venture. How do you talk about pivot? Because there's so much at stake, whether it's our own ego or how we feel about people all watching us, right? How do you advising on that?
So I had a leader many years ago who taught me a powerful lesson about ego. And it was his mantra for all of us who reported to him. He was senior vice president of this publicly traded company. And whenever we would bring something to him, me or one of my peers, I need your insight on this, or I need some of your, muscle to get this pushed through. His first question to us was always, where's your ego on this?
Okay. How do you answer that?
Well, you learn that in time that he was teaching you to think about the common good first and to consider other factors other than yourself, your own department, your career, so forth, to have a wider perspective. And when you get asked that enough times, you realize I better have an answer.
So how do you answer that question?
Well, that's when you start to answer that question by saying, I've thought about this and I've included these people and I've socialized it with this group and it's going to benefit this cross-section of people. Those were the things that he wanted to hear.
Okay, so back to what I said about pivoting, about, having so much at stake, especially, maybe earlier stage ventures.
Yeah.
How would you advise individuals maybe thinking things did not work out and he or she might need to pivot?
Yeah.
How are you advising them on that when there's a livelihood on the stake? This is not making a decision.
It's their money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially for startup and small businesses, the impact of their decisions can be quite profound. And it can be very difficult for a CEO to come to terms with the road that we were on is no longer the right one. And in order to achieve the bigger goals, we have to construct a new road. And I do work with executives on that pretty regularly. And if they are willing to be flexible and recognize that nothing in life stays the same, including your plan, then they will come along with the journey, I have found. the folks who are really married to an idea or a plan, and I think there's a level of commitment, particularly in the startup arena, that absolutely has to be there, just indefatigable. I always mess up pronouncing that word, but just relentless in their pursuit for what it is that they're trying to create. Entrepreneurs are a little bit different than business leaders. Entrepreneurs imagine a new way of doing or being or interacting, and so they can become quite married to that path. But if we can work together to develop alternative paths to still reaching those goals, we just do it a different way, then they're better positioned for success. I mean, my own experience of going through '08 taught me that very powerfully, that in order to meet my goals, I had to absolutely completely rework things.
And that takes a lot of courage. And as someone who, you have such a unique path, right? You are the corporate leader. You also a business owner. You also product owner. I imagined you walk through different phases of identity in your course of career.
Yeah.
Do you think that entrepreneurship is born, is nature versus nurture? What's your thought about that?
I don't know.
Do you always knew you wanted to have your own product one day, or that's more like just happened?
That's probably another one of those things that really shaped me as a human being, is that I started a small business when I was 9 years old, and in my little town, and then I had another business when I was 12. When I went off to college originally, I started a small business in college. It's just one of those things that I always felt comfortable with. And when you do that sort of thing repeatedly, almost unconsciously, it's a demonstration of who you are.
So who are you, Andrea?
I'm a person that just loves business, and one of the things that I ask my clients is, are you a builder or an operator? The world needs both. Neither is wrong. We need them both. But knowing which lane that you're in is so powerful, because you need to find your complement to be an effective leader. And I'm a builder. I'm not so much an operator. So at different times in my career, I have brought in good operators to complement my building activities.
How do you know whether you build it or not? Is it a characteristic of whether you're entrepreneur or not? No, right? Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I think, builders tend to be very engaged in the launching and birthing of ideas.
Got it.
And they enjoy the process of initiation, ideation.
Making something possible that have not been seen.
Exactly.
Versus I imagine operator will be like, all right, that's great. Here's the 3 steps we need to do. That person bring the idea into life through operation.
Yes. Exactly. And
That's
making
exciting.
It better, consistent
Yeah.
improvement. Yeah.
So what do you think is your superpower, if you have to only pick one, Andrea, along the course of career?
Confidence.
Confidence. Do you always have that, or is it learned?
Yeah. It's strange. I was visiting my mom recently, and that topic came up, and she said, you've just always been like this. And I go, really? Of course, I don't remember when I was younger who I was or how I was viewed by an adult. And she said, yeah, you were confident when you were like 3 and 4 years old. So I think some of that I'm the firstborn. There is data that suggests
I'm firstborn too.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. You're responsible for everything.
Yeah. And I think that, there's a lot of data that suggests that firstborn tend to be
Leader.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest among all, whether it's my own siblings, my cousins. I grew up quite close with my relative family, so I'm always oldest. That means anytime, any person, we have a lot of people, like 6, 7 of us, cousin-wise, anyone make a mistake, in my grandma's eyes, it's my fault. You're the oldest, of course. What are you doing? And I'll be like, oh my God. I remember how annoying that was. But today, I definitely recognize myself as someone that I feel I naturally just want to support people in my arena. Growing up as my relatives, my sisters, my cousins. And today is, community that I lead. So I can see that. And I'm curious, Andrea, I imagine life was not always a smooth sailing, even though it might appear, son. I'm curious, in your personal journey, what is one thing that is the hardest thing you ever done?
The hardest thing I ever did.
Or most challenging? Maybe it is that night in '08 when things happen, you were thinking about how do you keep the lights on. Or maybe it is a moment when you decided to sell the product company thinking, you know what, maybe I'm going to follow this chapter and, cruising through the sunset. Or maybe it's a moment you have a lunch with a lady thinking, wow, I have so much more. Is there anything like that? Or something more that was very hard or challenging?
I think the hardest, time that anyone normally has is when we lose people we care about. And that's probably been, the hardest things for me to navigate. But business and life and, things like that give me more energy than duress, I guess. So I don't know if I answered that question for you, but
I can definitely understand that will be a quite a challenging chapter in your life.
Yeah.
I'm curious, in addition to that, what is the number one lesson you learned in business or in life in this chapter of who you are?
My mom always said when we were kids that people are just doing the best they can. And she was kind of a power skirt. She was a computer programmer when there were maybe 3.
Woman.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And she would always say, people are just doing the best that they can. And I think, a lot of times people just don't know what best looks like. You just have to draw that for them. And you have to inspire them that they can be, better than they are. And that's a big part of what I do now is remind people of just how worthwhile they are. And, it may as well be them. I have a client right now who's equivocating on whether to go to the next level or not. And I keep asking, if you don't, are you going to be happy with the person that they select to be in that role to oversee you?
How do you define happiness in this stage
of my life right now?
Yeah.
I love what I do. I really enjoy supporting my clients. It's probably the happiest I've ever been career-wise.
What is one piece of advice you wish to give younger version of Andrea?
Keep plugging away. Yeah, don't let, setbacks, keep those in perspective. Make a lot of mistakes. Just keep trucking.
Is it difficult to make mistakes back then?
I'm sorry?
Was it difficult to make mistakes?
I think that, I think that we tend to put a lot of expectations on ourselves. And I've always been a high achiever. And so when I was younger and I'd have a setback, I'd take it really hard. And now I look at more of it as a learning experience and an opportunity to be more creative.
That's very powerful.
Yeah.
Have that growth mindset, knowing that it's not a failure unless we let it be.
Right.
It becomes a stepping stone moving forward.
Yeah.
But I imagine that reframing minds is not always easy.
It's mental toughness, right?
Yeah. And that's something that I think is one of your superpowers is you have such an elegant presence, but inside I see the strengths of you.
Oh, thank you.
which is very, very beautiful.
I appreciate that. That's kind of you.
Thank you. What is one mark you want to leave on this planet, Andrea?
We talk about legacy a lot, me and my clients, and I'm, I serve on nonprofit boards and volunteer, and it's that continuation of my childhood, that youth community service that I did. I think I'd rather be known for that than any business success. That I feel very much like it is our duty as people on this planet to give back to the community in which we live. And so I think that's probably how I'd like to be remembered.
And Andrea, I think you are someone very unique that you see it all. You see big company, small company, you on the driver's seat, you are on the passenger seat, you are all in above. And this next question going to sound weird, but what do you think is the point or meaning of all in your perspective?
The meaning of
life, journey, business, whatever you want to put it in that bucket is what is the meaning for you as you chugging along, using your word, right? Chugging along with one goal after another, go after the next level of excellent in your own way. What is meaning of all for you?
Yeah, I always want to think that I've stretched myself and done things that I kind of scared me or I didn't think were necessarily possible, and then look back and go, "Hey, look at that!"
What's scary next?
I'm a goal planner. So for over 20 years, my husband and I spend January 1st committing all of our goals, and we
wow,
so
you are committed.
And so I get kind of tactical on this. So we've got them categorized by, vacations and home projects and professional and spiritual, everything. And I've been keeping them. I add a new worksheet in this master spreadsheet. So every year, another worksheet's added. And what's so powerful about that, and this is why I tell people, goal plan, write them down. What's so powerful about that is I look back 15 years ago and look at the goals that we were writing and striving for at that moment and remembering, oh, that just seemed like an impossibility, right? And now it's like, oh, that's just one of many achievements.
Wow.
And it's so powerful. So when you think, oh, can I do that? Of course you can.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to put one foot in front of the other. And so this year I had 2 professional goals that I really wanted to achieve, that I thought were pretty much in the impossible category. I had several others, and I haven't achieved all of those. But the 2 that I thought were pretty hard to do, I've done, and it's May. So I'm like, all right, so I'm not going to sit back. I've still got 7, more months. So I need to come up with new goals.
Easy.
Figure out how to do some more stretch stuff before the end of the year. So I'm working on that.
So what scared you next, Andrea?
What scares me next? So I think I want to start another business.
Different? Now what? A product business or services or complete different nonprofit? Like, do you have any?
I have a business in mind, and
you don't have to say if.
And it's probably going to be bigger than anything I've done. So
you're excited for?
I am. Yeah. Yep. I'm preparing. I'm getting ready.
Wow, I love that enthusiasm and never-ending growth, which is so exciting.
I know. I look at people and I think you don't have to be done, until you feel done, right? That's something I work with my clients on too, is this whole notion of retirement. I think we should retire the word retirement. It doesn't fly anymore. It's not applicable. I think the final chapter of your career can be anything you want it to be. And it can be a combination of things.
Everything is possible.
Yeah.
The world is our oyster. Dream big, everybody.
Exactly. Redefine yourself, if you want to.
And one thing that struck me is that, Andrea, as an achiever you have such a even-keeled temperament, and which I probably contribute to a very healthy mindset. I'm curious, what would you speak to a listener on the other end, maybe who are also achiever, maybe in a little bit earlier stage and, plugging along like you speak about, who maybe a little bit stressed and a little bit like, oh my God, I don't know if I can get this, right? What would you advise in those individuals who are as big of achiever like you, going for things they're scared about, but how do they keep that right balance?
Find something that you can burn your excess energy off doing, that takes you out of the pressure cooker of what you're trying to achieve. For some people, that's visual arts or running, or it could be anything. I have a client right now who says, if I can just be on the lake in a kayak for 6 hours, I'm good for like 3 weeks. And so whatever that is that takes your mind off of it and allows you to recharge is a healthy practice.
I love it. I do theater. I think that's very helpful.
Oh, very nice.
But yeah, I think you're right. Find the thing that gave you joy and do the thing.
If you think about most successful people, doesn't have to be just business people. One year I decided I was going to read a biography about each president in the order in which they served, because I wanted that continuity of the historical lesson along with a fresh perspective on these different leaders. Because to me, it was a leadership study.
What did you find out?
Well, they're all flawed. They all make mistakes. None of them are ready for the job. Many of them rise to the occasion. Some, unfortunately, did not. But it's a tough job. And what came from that was they were all known for whatever it was that they were exceptional at. But they always had something else that they were known for, So Teddy Roosevelt, for example, he conquered the Amazon, and he was such an outdoorsman and took great chances exploring virgin terrain and things like that. So when you think about successful people, many of them have that primary area of focus around business or government or what have you. Then they also have some hobby or interest that they excel at as well. And that, I think, is the secret, that they get a break from one or the other by, fully immersing themselves in their interests.
Wow, that's such a golden piece. Wow, I really thoroughly enjoy that. I can definitely see why that become those individuals' superpower as they charging demand such a high stake, and there's a place for them to be themselves and bring that joy in. As we closing this conversation, Andrea, do you have one last piece of whether it's advice or wisdom you want to partner with the audience who are also leaders in their own realm, whether they are running a Fortune 500 company or Fortune 5,000 companies, a small growing venture? What is one piece of wisdom if you want to part with, if any?
Stick to your values.
Find the value and stick to your value.
Yeah. If you know what your values are and you make business decisions based on your values, it always works out.
I love it. And just so we all know, give us some value example. Integrity, honesty, that's what you talk about?
Yep. Freedom,
authenticity,
charity.
All right, so
loyalty.
Those 5 to choose from. Royalty, we got 6.
So I have, in the exercise that we do, we have 100 to choose from.
That's hard values.
And sometimes people, they're like, hey, wealth is a value. That's okay. If that's part of your value system, that's quite all right. There's no value judgment made on that, but be true to your values. And so, for example, a client of mine about a year ago had a very difficult decision to make, and it was a public one, and the team was pretty upset about what was going on. And it's one of those where there are no easy answers. I think that's the higher up you go, the more you realize often there are no good decisions or good choices rather. There's just kind of
Make choice good.
Yeah. And so we spent about an hour one day just getting very clear. We'd already done the values previously, but we went back through his values within the context of this very challenging decision. And when we finished, he had a plan. And so then we rehearsed how he was going to present that at a town hall. And I knew he would do well because the authenticity would shine through. And he did. When he presented it, he told him, quite frankly, I know on the surface you may not agree with this decision and you may have reservations about joining me. So I'm going to tell you why I am going down this course of action. It's based on my values. And then he was very vulnerable and expressed how his values played a part in this decision. And he received so much support for that decision, even from people who would later say, I don't necessarily agree 100% with this direction, but I 100% agree with following you through it.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. And it's because I think we as humans recognize that in other people when they are being true to who they are, and it makes them leaders we want to follow.
No one follow companies. People follow people.
That's true. Yeah,
well, with that, again, thank you so much, Andrea,
it was my pleasure
coming on the show and share such an authentic and powerful story about your own journey, but also all the beautiful wisdoms you partner with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Also, thank you everybody for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we cannot wait to see you all next time. Bye, guys.